All right, let's dive right into a pretty shocking idea from our source material today. The concept that in our modern world, human beings have basically become depreciating assets. Now I know, that's a tough pill to swallow, but stick with me, because it might just change how you see your own place in the world. So let me just ask you this, straight up. Have you ever felt that? You know, that feeling deep in your gut that you're just a small, replaceable part of some giant, impersonal system that doesn't really see you?
Well, that feeling is exactly what we're digging into. The source material lays out this provocative, almost brutal idea that we've hit a point where, and I'm quoting here, man became a depreciating asset, and his true value was forgotten. Wow, that's a heavy statement, and it's really the key to understanding the deep cracks in the system we're about to look at.
So what does that actually mean, to be a depreciating asset? Let's unpack that, because it's the central idea here.
Think about it like a piece of equipment, maybe a company car. It's useful for a while, it does its job, but over time it loses value, right? And eventually it gets replaced by a newer, more efficient model. The argument here is that our economic system has started to view its human workers in the exact same way. We're seen as a resource to be managed, optimized, and eventually replaced when something cheaper, like AI, comes along.
Now, this way of thinking didn't just pop up out of nowhere. The argument is that it comes from three fundamental cracks in the very foundation of what it calls the old world. Let's take a look at each one. Okay, the first major system failure is something called the policy void. And this is all about the huge, gaping chasm between what our leaders measure and what actually matters for our happiness and well-being.
And this is where it gets kind of wild. It points out this massive disconnect. You have governments that are totally obsessed with metrics like GDP. They see that number go up and they call it a success. So the economic indicators can be flashing green, the stock market's soaring, but at the exact same time, the actual human experience, our mental health, our sense of community, our trust in anything, can be in total freefall. This creates a vacuum where policies end up serving the economic machine, not the people it's supposed to be for.
So, if the policies aren't serving people, who are they serving? Well, that takes us directly to the second major crack in the system's foundation, the profit foundation.
This really gets to the why behind it all. Why is the system set up like this? The argument is that it's built on a foundation that puts profit above, well, everything else. Technology like AI gets rolled out with ruthless efficiency, not to free us up to be more creative or follow our passions, but to cut labor costs and make shareholders happy. And the result? It's this massive, ever-widening gap between the very few who benefit and the many who feel like they're being left behind. And you know, living in a system like this, it does something to us psychologically. And that brings us to the third and final crack, the me trap. This is what it does to us on a personal level. We get caught in this frantic, almost fearful competition with everyone around us. Our neighbors suddenly look like rivals, all of us scrambling for what feels like a smaller and smaller piece of the pie. This scarcity mindset is a trap. It creates this vicious cycle of anxiety and loneliness. And maybe worst of all, it stops us from coming together to actually change this system.
Okay, so I know, the diagnosis sounds incredibly bleak. It's a lot. But this is the exact moment where the entire narrative takes this fascinating, completely unexpected turn. The source reframes this whole crisis not as a total disaster, but as something it calls a divine extraction.
I mean, just listen to that. This isn't about collapse, it's about being liberated. The whole idea here is that this really painful time of disruption is actually a kind of cosmic intervention, a rescue mission where the universe itself is pulling us out of a broken system that was literally using our souls as fuel.
So here's the pivot. What we might see as the great layoff or just economic chaos is reframed as a gift. A really difficult, maybe even violent gift, but a gift nonetheless. It's this forced opportunity to stop defining ourselves by what we do for a paycheck and to finally start remembering who we really are, what it just means to be. So, if we're being yanked out of the old system, what are we supposed to build in its place? This is where the whole analysis shifts from problem to solution, and it draws on some really ancient human wisdom to help us rebuild. The first pillar for this new way of living is a Japanese concept you might have heard of, ikigai. It's often translated as your reason for being. So your ikigai is found in this beautiful sweet spot right at the center of four things: what you love, what you're good at, what the world actually needs, and what you can be valued for. For centuries, our society has been obsessed with only that last one: what can you get paid for? The argument is that the collapse of the old model is our chance to find our true center, where all four of these things come together. It's not a job title. It's, as the source puts it, the song your soul yearns to sing.
But, finding our individual purpose is really only half of it. We also have to fix the way we connect with each other. And for that, we turn to a second pillar, the amazing African philosophy of Ubuntu. The entire spirit of Ubuntu is captured in this one simple, incredibly powerful phrase, I am because we are. It means my humanity isn't separate from your humanity. It's tangled up in it. It's defined by it. This idea completely shatters the me trap. All of a sudden, things like empathy and community aren't just nice-to-haves. They become absolutely essential for our own existence.
So, with Ikigai as our personal compass and Ubuntu as our social roadmap, what does this new Earth actually look like? Let's do a direct side-by-side comparison of the old way and the new way.
First, just look at the basic operating system. The old world runs on a program of survival and scarcity, which naturally leads to competition. The new Earth, it runs on abundance. And when you believe there's enough to go around, you stop competing and you start collaborating for the good of everyone. It's the difference between fighting over crumbs and baking a giant loaf of bread together. And this is a huge one. It's about our identity. We move away from defining ourselves by our job title, where our value is literally tied to our economic output. Instead, we start to see ourselves as a piece of the universal puzzle. In this way of thinking, your value isn't something you have to earn. It's built in. It's inherent just because you exist.
And finally, this changes the entire definition of success. The old world's currency is money. Success means you accumulate more profit, more power. But the new Earth proposes a totally new currency, the vibrancy of our connections, our empathy. Success is measured by what the Source calls the flow of the thread of love, basically the quality of our relationships with each other.
So this is where we land. The Source makes a really strong case that the old system isn't just a little broken, it's cracking at the seams and it's unsustainable. Which leaves all of us with a final, really big question to think about. As this old world continues to unravel, how will you help weave the new one?